Hey everyone, welcome back to the Attractions Group podcast. It's week 2 here with me and David. David, how are you today?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Well, I'm doing great here. Orlando, Florida's never a bad place to be. What's the snow situation in Cincinnati
who
today?
who knows? Unlike a couple weeks ago when they were jumping the gun, canceling school the night before, I think they're taking this a little easy. We're supposed to get 1 to 3 inches, which back when I was growing up, that wasn't considered a storm. This now they're you go to the grocery and everything, even the eggs are $10 a dozen or whatever, going to be gone. But I think they're playing this in cool. Kroger's not sponsoring this storm, so who knows?
Kroger's not. Okay, that's good. We're supposed to get down here a polar vortex this weekend and
Oh,
next. So
what is
I
that? It
was
gets down to the 60s.
it's actually going to be in the 30s,
Ooh.
which is I don't think we'll have any snow, but you never know with that kind of temperature.
Last time that the cold weather got down there, we have some friends down there in the uh, goodness, I forget what part of town it is, just a little northwest of Orlando, or I guess of the resort areas, and they were recording. They had snow in front of their car headlights. So yeah, it
Oh,
does happen. We took our kids down to Disney back in, I think it was 11 or 12, I think, and it snowed that day. We actually had storms. We had heat, storms, wind, then snow before we left.
that
It's
sounds exactly like Orlando, Florida. Yes.
yeah, the random snowflake every 10 years.
Yeah, having lived in Cincinnati and Orlando, I think I've had the craziest weather that you really could have in between those two cities. So we've got a lot of exciting stuff going on in the theme park industry, and David and I want to kind of keep the Pick Six news outlet alive from Ryan and Don. So let's get right into it with this
All right.
week's Pick Six.
All right. Well, first one coming up in the news is Cedar Point. They have a couple of interesting things coming up this year. They have a very unique distinction. They're going to be rolling out two major roller coasters. Now, if you're in the industry and you know about Cedar Point, you're thinking, oh, no, they only have one. Well, if you rewind about a year ago when Top Thrill 2 was redesigned and reimagined, it was only open for about a week, and then it closed down. No one thought it was going to be closed all season, but it ended up being, I believe, it was in August. They more or less said, "Yeah, it's going to be shut down. It's not going to reopen." So when they reopened for this season, Top Thrill 2 is going to be essentially a new experience for 99% of the people that go to Cedar Point in the season. And then Siren's Curse is coming up, which is you said it's the first one in the United States, and I forget what you said the kind of coaster it was.
Yeah, it's a they call them tilt coasters. So
Tilt coaster.
the tilting action of the train. It's not technically the first one in the United States because actually Harry Potter and the Escape from Gringotts kind of has a similar thing, but it's not a full 90 degrees like Siren's Curse will be.
Yeah, it's. I've looked at the videos. I've seen some of the pictures, and it is unique. You go up there, and essentially you are looking straight down before it cuts off. And I don't know if they're going to add
Absolutely.
any. Are they going to add any element to that to build the anticipation up to that drop, or is it just going to come out of nowhere?
Yeah, you would think so, but it's hard to tell from the renderings and so forth. It is really kind of crazy to me though that that ride with that kind of gimmick, we'll call it a gimmick, is right
Yeah,
next to Valraven, which has kind of a similar gimmick, but
that's true.
that's the Cedar Point way. They're not edging on the side of not having enough. They're definitely on the other side.
Yeah, and you have to go back a long time to find a park, major or small, that essentially rolls out two roller coasters in the same season. So,
Absolutely.
so
So
kudos to them.
speaking of rolling out a lot of things in the same season, there is a million updates about the new Universal Park opening on May 22nd, Epic Universe. And unfortunately for many of us people that live in Florida, none of those updates are about pass holder previews or team member previews. But what we did learn was they announced a date for Halloween Horror Nights this year, which is very exciting. And who knows what they're going to try to bring out with the opening of Epic Universe in the same year. It's going to be amazing. Not to mention back on January the 24th, I think it was, maybe the 25th, either that Friday or Saturday, We had one of the three Epic Universe hotels open up in the Terra Luna, excuse me, resort. And it's interesting living down here. I kind of try to drive past as much as I can. All of the construction just on the roads that you kind of don't see in the park pictures progress. Um,
Hmm.
the bus lanes being, and all of this huge infrastructure that has to be changed for the crazy traffic that's going to be had, especially in these first 6 months of operation.
Which is interesting because with the
So
construction, all that, we were there and stayed along I Drive back in December, and there were no construction cones up yet that I saw. There might have been, but I didn't see any.
really,
And so all this construction has literally happened in the last month or so.
yeah, yeah, and it's also so crazy just to think about the way that Epic Universe or Universal as a company would have to go about trying to talk to the city of Orlando and uh
Hmm.
tell them, hey, we want to build a new park, we want to do all these things, but we need you to help us out, and to think about the way the economics of the road constructions and stuff happen. Obviously a lot of exciting lands and attractions, Dark Universe, Mario Land, How to Train Your Dragon. If you were at Epic Universe today, you walked in right now and it was open for you, which land are you going to first?
Oh boy, that's a tough one because it's all new, and of course you want to hit them all. I don't know which area that the Mario the runaway
Yeah, the
what's
Donkey Kong ride?
yeah, the donkey. That's one that's caught my attention because I grew up in the '80s when Super Mario Brothers came out, and I was on that every you know hours every day playing the game,
Yes.
and to see this come through and to see the renderings of it, it's I gotta say I don't know what land I'd go to yet, but I'd go to that coaster first.
Okay, I like that. I like that. I think personally I'm headed to the How to Train Your Dragon land. Love those
Yeah.
movies, and it's so topical for their opening date to be May 22nd. On I think it is June 8th. The live action remake of How to Train Your Dragon, the movie, is coming out as well.
Oh,
So great timing from Universal right there.
back last year, Kennywood in Pittsburgh had announced that Thomas Town's departure is going to take place. They were going to reimagine the land, and it didn't take too long for them to come up with the replacement, which is going to be Kennywood Junction, which is going to be a tie-in to the Kennywood's history and their tie to the Steel City, Pittsburgh. In addition to the other things they have in the park, obviously the Steel Curtain, which is a shout out to the Pittsburgh Steelers. But these are I've seen renderings and pictures online. The Kennywood website has a really unique rendering of how this area is going to look, and we'll have these probably the links to these on our social media feeds here sometime after this is posted. But it's Kennywood is slated to open on April 12th, and this should be a really neat addition to the park there.
There's always something to be said if you ask me about when parks have their new edition ready to go on opening day. So I'm excited to see that for 4/12 day, the very important day in the history of Kennywood, they'll be ready to go with Kennywood Junction. So speaking of being ready to go, something we are getting closer and closer to every day is the opening of Six Flags Qiddiya in Saudi Arabia. If you are if you've ever ridden a roller coaster, you need to drop what you're doing and look up some pictures of Falcon's Flight, what is going to be, and the track work is complete for, the world's tallest roller coaster by a humongous margin. It is unbelievable. There were tons of coaster fans that when this got announced just didn't see it coming to fruition, but here we are. There's no real specific announcement here. It's just that this humongous project is really getting close. So take your 5 minutes today and look up some pictures of Six Flags Qiddiya and what that park is going to be. It is extraordinarily special.
Now, just for some context, 600 feet tall. Is it 600 feet or is it 625? What's the actual height of it?
So it's a little unknown. It's not exactly published, but the drop will be over 600 foot is the information we have.
And just for context, if you've been to St. Louis before, the St. Louis Arch is I don't want to say only, but it's only 630 feet, and that's pretty tall. So if you can imagine a roller coaster with a drop, roughly the height of the Gateway Arch, that's just terrifying.
Yeah, that is terrifying. I think that's the only correct word to describe that.
Bradley Water Park in Bradley, Texas, part of the is the what is it? The place in Texas that's attached to? Anyway, they're doing a $30 million bond sale for the construction of this. Essentially, if you go online, you click the link. It is essentially what looks like a glass building with a water park in the middle of it, and it's about a 75 to $80 million tourist seeking water attraction that they're building. They have not started construction on it yet. They're still knocking down a mall that was built in that place, and it's it'll be interesting to see what this looks like when it's finished, how big it is, what the attractions look like on the inside. But essentially, if you look at the rendering of the building, it's essentially just a glass four glass walls that you can see in and out of.
Yeah, it looks like a greenhouse almost. Which I
It does.
wonder, like, will it be super hot in there with the Texas sun beating down?
I
I'm sure
wondered
they
the same
have.
thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
sure
sure
they
they
know
will
what
too.
they're
It's
doing,
just
but that
amazing because I
seems.
look at that and thinking, okay, if you sit in a car for any length of time, yeah, they don't need my input.
I think at this point it's safe to say the North Texas, Dallas, greater metro area is becoming a bit of a hub for the world of theme parks.
It,
There is
it certainly
the
seems so.
yeah, there's Six
Go.
Flags Over Texas already there, and then adding in this new water park in Bradley. Not to mention the Universal Kids Resort, which is going to be something super special up a little bit north in Frisco. And then Dude Perfect is launching their own theme park, more of a family entertainment center, it looks like, but nonetheless, a place that I think will definitely bring people from all over the United States to visit.
In Texas has about three or four really big, and they've got obviously more population centers, but the Dallas Fort Worth area, Houston area, San Antonio area, Austin, they've got all these population centers that are starting to develop their own tourist attractions, and it's really going to be interesting to see that at some point Texas could be running some competition, some steep competition with Florida, which
Absolutely.
a
I think at
lot
some
of thrill
point
stuff
soon.
coming. Hmm.
No doubt about that. So speaking of Florida, crazy breaking news today from the Walt Disney Company. By the way, I'm a cast member at the Walt Disney Company. I'm not speaking on behalf of them in any way, but all of the public found out today that the virtual queue for both Tiana's Bayou Adventure and for Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind are headed out, which is so crazy. So by the end of the month, by the end of the month of February, we will be completely done with virtual queues at Walt Disney World for the time being. Tiana's, I'm not surprised by. You can usually join that virtual queue still at about 9 p.m. if the park closes at
Hmm.
10. Guardians is a shock. I can't say I'm upset though. I'm super excited to be able to walk into Epcot at 4:30 and still get a ride on Guardians.
Yeah, I love Guardians. It's a great roller coaster. Do you know offhand was that planned? Because I guess no, I'm not connected there whatsoever. But I thought that the virtual queue is kind of going to be a way they did things in the future. But was that
Yeah,
planned?
so yeah, I think it's always been the goal to move them to standby weights. If you look at a lot of the recent additions from Disney, Tron, or looking back a little bit, Mickey and Minnie's did it. The virtual queue is a way that they like to mitigate crowds at the beginning of the life of a ride when it's just crazy crowd attractor. So I would have believed it if you told me Cosmic Rewind was on the virtual queue for a lot longer, but here we are. So I can't complain. So
Okay.
that's about it for pick six. If we missed any big theme park news, let us know down in the comments below and tell us which of these six new exciting things you are the most excited for. David, if you had to pick just one of those parks with the new additions, which one are you going to in 2025?
Well, that's kind of an easy one. Yeah, Epic Universe, because everything's new there. I mean, every experience that you walk
Yeah,
into there, from the time you go to the gate to the time you go to the back of the park, side of the park, everything is new. So yeah, that's probably an easy. It's a walk off right there.
yeah, kind of a silly question, I
No,
suppose.
no, no, no. You gave me a softball. I appreciate that. How about you?
Okay, good, good. So, oh, same. But out of the other ones, I think I would head back up to Cedars Point
Hmm.
and try to get on Siren's Curse.
Yeah, that'd be a close second.
Yeah, yeah. So we introduced ourselves a little bit last week, but let's talk about this a little bit more. Let's talk about what got the two of us to where we are right now, talking roller coasters, talking parks, talking entertainment of all varieties. While I don't know, maybe 900 miles apart. How do we get here?
How to get here? Well, honestly, I do want to make sure that we give people that tune in are expecting to see two very different people here. Make sure to give continued shout outs to Ryan and Don for a while. Uh, their last episode that they had done consistently was back in September of last year, and there are some things that happened. I don't know if I want to get into the personal details of what those are, but also they had chosen to focus on their Tower Topics podcast, which they continue to do. They've continued to do all through all this. And you can look at that by going to YouTube and type in Tower Topics, and they'll come up. And actually, in our schedule coming up, the different interviews that we have coming up, Don will be coming back on to talk about his one of the blogs that he writes and the things that he contributes to, called Theme Parks by Don. I believe that's sometime in late April. But yeah, if you are tuning into this, you hear our voices right now, by all means, look them up. They have a great podcast called Tower Topics. And I believe it's available on the same locations that the Attractions Group podcast has been. So, but in the last 18 to 24 months, really, I've worked in the theme park industry for about 12 to 15 years. And it's just been a growing passion of mine. It's something that I've done over the longer than that. Aside from just going to parks, I've always been intrigued by the inner workings and how things are done in the immersive environments, and how people. This is designed to elicit this kind of reaction or this kind of response or this emotion. And about 12 years ago, I got the opportunity to work for a company that did things in the theme parks, and got my feet wet that way. And from there, just branched out into doing a number of different things, level of responsibility, and doing some contract work with developing experiences for a handful of places. And then the pandemic hit, and we tried to pivot into other areas and get into uh, education, collaboration, and networking. Podcasting wasn't really something that we had in mind, but Ryan and Don came and wanted to start this, and sure, go for it. And then they, of course, moved on to other things, and this became something that, well, it's already got a following built. Let's see if we can keep it rolling. So that's where I came to where I am here today. How about you, Cleet?
Yeah, well, so I'm here. You know, as a coaster fan, perhaps first, maybe in my life, that is what I am, a coaster fan first. But I'm here in a big way because I snapped at the opportunity to. So I would like to, thank in front of everyone, David, for letting me be here and talk to everybody. But yeah, no, I'm very happy to be here, and I'm very excited for all of the wonderful things that this podcast is going to do coming up. So,
What sparked your interest in the industry to begin with? How'd you
well,
get started on roller coasters?
He started on roller coasters. It really was. I went, I'd seen some things on YouTube. I had been excited about it and so forth. And then I went up to Cedar Point when I was 6 or so, probably 6 years old. My mom took me up. My grandma was there. My mom and my brother, my older brother, they went off to ride rides. And I literally was not tall enough, but
You don't
I
have that
rode
problem
everything I
now.
could, No, you're right. Yes. Uh, Disaster Transport. I remember
Oh
riding that
wow.
first trip, and I think, yeah, which is for somebody who's currently 19 is probably a pretty rare experience to have ridden Disaster Transport.
Now
But
for people who may be tuning in that don't know about disaster transport, which went away a number of years ago in favor of Gatekeeper, describe because it's a very unique roller coaster experience that was reimagined once. But describe what that roller coaster was.
yeah, so it's an aerodynamics made, of Vortex and many suspended coasters, fame aerodynamics. They built a bobsled coaster, which basically is like a water slide type track. And you have a cart with wheels, like a roller coaster, that's rolling around on it. The ride was originally built right on the beach, basically where Gatekeeper is now, and the wind would
Mhm.
push a lot of sand into this kind of tubular track. And that's not good. That's going to cause a lot of problems. Sand's going to get up in the wheel assemblies of the trains. So what they did, what Cedar Point did, was built basically a box, just a big old iron box around the whole structure, and it became an enclosed attraction. That is the way I rode it. I never got to ride it while it was outside, but it was pretty dark in there for many
Yes, I
ride.
remember it
Sometimes
being
you can
very
see a
dark.
little. You pretty much couldn't see anything, but you could feel the forces and feel the wind in your face, and it was probably, I would say, the ride that hooked me the most.
Yeah.
I ended up starting to work at Kings Island in the summer of 2022, rather 2022, and I just it working in parks takes it to a whole new level. It's just it's a there is nothing in the world that I love as much as I was at work just yesterday, and one of my coworkers asked me, "What do you do for fun?" And I told them, "I work here. That is what I do for fun."
That's funny.
Um, nothing quite like it. So I think it's going to be a fun time, and I think the theme park industry is somewhere that I am here to stay.
That's awesome.
So, are there any cool kind of events or experiences from your career, your life as a guest at theme parks that you would be kind enough to share?
Exp- Experiences in response to one that I've been at, or something that happened to us there, or
Yeah, I'd say some cool sort of events you've got to go to, something you've been at.
yeah, I'll go to a personal response. And as I gotten older and I have kids, and when they were younger, we took them to Magic Kingdom. Of course, going to Magic Kingdom for the first time. I think I gave a little bit of a story last week, and I won't repeat that. But also, when you stay on property, I don't think they've done this since the pandemic, but they would have, if you stayed on property at Disney, they had these magical hours, extended hours. And sometimes they do it an hour before opening in the morning, or they'd extend it well past closing. And this one happened to be well past closing. The park was, Magic Kingdom was open from, if you were staying on property, from 10 o'clock until 2 o'clock, and 2 o'clock in the morning. And there's a picture hanging up in my office that just our family's not in it, but we're looking down the main street towards the castle, and there's a clock off to the side that I didn't notice when I took the picture. But when I blew up the picture and made it into a large picture to put in my office, I noticed that the timestamp on the clock was 15 minutes after 2 a.m. And we have, parents of the year. We have our and myself, my wife, and our two daughters, two young daughters at that time, at Magic Kingdom, 2 o'clock in the morning. That's one of the more cool things. And really, any time that we go and experience something new. For instance, this past year, I forget what the oh, it involved Magic Kingdom again, but they had the fireworks display. And I forget what the show is called. But when we got there early, so we could get a good spot on Main Street to see it from to see the castle. And I remember we took a picture in front of us and behind us. And of course, the pandemic's been over for a while, but to look and see people sort of, I mean, if we had to go anywhere, we couldn't go anywhere because we were just stuck in that spot. There are so many people there. And anytime you get to go to a park, whether it's that or you go to a Grand Carnival for the Cedar Fair Parks had, that you're part of something that's got a lot of energy. That's something new, something fresh that you've never experienced before. And honestly, just to see the excitement and energy of the people in attendance, those are just really great instances and events to be part of. And it's no wonder that it's such a fun industry to be involved in.
The 2018 going into 2019 New Year's Eve celebration at Kings Island.
Okay. Yeah.
They had just brought Winterfest back for the year before and then that year. And so they wanted to make New Year's Eve a big
Right.
thing. It didn't really pan out,
Was that the
but
year that it
they had a lot.
was that the year it was so windy that night? It was really, or was that the next year?
So, there was that year. It was so
Okay.
windy. Yes.
It was. I remember the
And
fireworks went
I
up.
was there.
The fireworks went up, and as soon as they exploded, they're way off to the side. And the lights on the tower were
Yeah.
swaying back and forth. Yeah, that was crazy. It was
Yes.
a
Yes.
crazy fun night.
It was. And there were not a lot of people there. I
There
think
weren't.
Kings Island had
I was
prepared for a
surprised.
huge guest. Yeah. And I rode Mystic Timbers a bunch, and then I got out, watched the New Year's, what brought it in with a bunch of fellow theme park fans, and it was something I will remember for a long time. So, would you mind if you'd like to talk a little bit about to give the listeners a little something to look forward to going forward on the podcast? Is there any guests you'd like to shout out or build some excitement for?
We actually have a full schedule with the exception of one random date in between now and the first part of May. So we've had no problem getting people enthusiastic about wanting to come on. We actually have about 5 or 6 guests that are confirmed, but we don't have a date set up for them yet. Next week, we have Dennis Speigel, who is one of the original architects of designing Kings Island. And he's been on the podcast before. He might have been on once or twice with at least once, maybe a few more times with Don and Ryan when they were doing it. And he's coming back on, and we're just going to chat with him for a little while. We have as park president of Holiday World coming up in March as well. And then also last year, this is something if you've been to, I'm kind of excited about this because I don't think a lot of people know this exists. I've been to Cedar Point a number of times and have been to Sandusky. I had no idea this place existed. It is a merry-go-round museum in the middle of downtown Sandusky. They had bought an old post office and converted it into a a museum. And they're not a member of IAPA, and they're not affiliated with Cedar Point, although they do have a Cedar Point historical museum as part of an annex to it. I just found that out this past week when we scheduled this. But they'll be coming on. Their executive director will be with us sometime. I believe it's late April. And again, Don will be former co-host. Don will be coming back on sometime in April also to talk about his blog, Theme Parks by Don. And we have a number of other people, and it's we look to have a lot of fun talking about immersive experiences, how to design those, how places uh, start with a little idea and it just blossoms out. We'll also take if people want to comment who they'd like to see on or what type of industry professional they'd like to see on. We would love to have those suggestions because honestly, we just kind of have in our heads who we think would be good. Maybe a roller coaster designer, or a ride designer, or a park president. But there may be some things that are in our blind spot as to who we should have on.
Absolutely. I can't even tell you how excited I am to get to have these conversations coming up. I think it is going to be something special. Absolutely going to be a great time. So I don't want to put you on the spot here, but I kind of do. We got a fun little game we're going to try to play right now. We have prepared for each other some theme park trivia that we don't know what the questions are going to be, but we're going to fire them and see how it goes. So I think you have 2 for me,
I do
right?
have 2. All right. So
Okay, so maybe you go first and then I'll give you yours.
yeah, I need 2 opportunities to stump you because you got a lot of industry knowledge just kind of rattling around up there, and I've got them rattling around up there too, but they're kind of parked in the dust some places. So the Ferris wheel is not a uniquely American thing, but it is a very old type ride here in the United States. And this is a two-part question. When was the first one operating, and where was it at?
Okay. All right. So I'm fairly certain that it was
Oh,
for a World's Fair, is where they built the first
okay.
Ferris wheel.
Right. Okay,
Now,
that's
I
that's
want
part
to
of the
say,
first. That's part of part one, but it's not exactly part one.
okay, I need where the World's Fair was, right? I need the city.
Right.
I'm going to say that that is Chicago, Illinois. That's
That
what
is
it feels like
correct.
the answer is to that.
All right. And the
Okay.
year within
Now,
5 years. You have a
within
10-year
5 years.
buffer
All right.
within 5 years.
World's Fair, let's say, let's go 1898.
You got right on the outside of the 5 years. Cut off half of
What
that
is
eight, and
it?
you got it. Cut off half of the eight.
Okay. 1894.
1893. As you just hack the number in half.
Oh, half of
Yes.
I like that. 1893. Okay, all right, that wasn't bad. That wasn't bad.
Yeah,
For you,
we'll
I
give
got a
you.
little bit of a thinker. This is
Oh, jeez. Can I phone a friend, or what lifeline do I have? Can I Google?
you Google would defeat the purpose a little, but you got this. There are
Okay.
8 wooden roller coasters in the state of Ohio, your home state, currently operating. Can you
Okay.
name all 8? Now, the one
Okay. Well,
hint
this is
kind of
eight questions.
well, it is, but it's yeah, I guess it is sort of 8 questions.
Okay. I'm gonna get now. Okay, the racer and Gemini, are those two, or is that one?
So, the Racer just won.
Just one,
Gemini is actually a hybrid coaster.
but it's got a wood structure.
The track right, but the track is steel track. So,
Okay.
kind of a weird thing with Gemini, but it makes
It's
the ride pretty smooth.
so it's not considered one of them.
Right.
So that also
But
means
you
a
do have
steel.
the Racer.
That also means a steel vengeance is not one. Correct.
Correct. Yeah, that's another
Oh,
hybrid.
geez. Okay, blue. Okay, we'll go through Kings Island first, since that's the one I'm most familiar with. So we got the racer, we got Mystic Timbers, we got oh goodness, what do they call it now? It used to be the BC, then it was Scooby Doo, and then it was Fairly Odd Coaster. What is it now?
It's called
I
Woodstock
haven't
Express,
been in
but that
that.
one's that's you got it.
I haven't been in that part of the park in years. Woodstock Express,
I can't
and
blame
then
you.
we had the Beast. Okay, so do I have all the Kings Island ones? That's four, right?
4.
Four. Okay, we got the Blue Streak up in Sandusky. We
Blue
got
Streak.
Blue Streak. Uh, Goodness. Oh, there's one at this Columbus Zoo. I can't think of the name of it. It's not Wildcat, is it?
I was gonna say the hint I'll let you have is for the last 3, you just have to describe them. I don't need the name, just describe where they are. So if
Okay.
Columbus, it's called Sea Dragon, but
See,
I'll take it.
okay. Uh, okay, I got 6. I got 2. So that means there's 2 at Cedar Point. Correct? There's no other park in Ohio, right?
Or does it? Maybe I'll tell you this: they are not at Cedar Point.
They're not at Cedar Point. Okay. Oh, Stricker's Grove. They're both at Stricker's Grove.
They
Um,
both are.
all right. That's weird. I guess I thought that Cedar Point would have more wood coasters than that.
Yeah, it's
It's
crazy. They literally just have the 65-foot tall Blue Streak. That's kind of weak for
Yeah.
a park of that caliber. But I guess
No,
it
I wouldn't
evens
call it
out
weak,
when
but
your
okay.
same company has Mystic Timbers. But
Yeah.
when the same
Now,
company
now
has a
there may
park with Mystic Timbers and the Beast and the Racer.
to be fair, Racer and Beast came along before Cedar Fair did. But now, for some people who may not
This is true.
that may be listening to this that don't know about Stricker's Grove, um, what can we say about Stricker's Grove? It's a theme
So
park in Ohio
Stricker's
that
Grove,
operates to the public twice a year, right? 2 or 3 times.
That's right. Yeah. It might be 3, I think. There's a guest appreciation day, which is just like some random day, and then it's open
Mhm.
on the 4th of July and on Labor Day, I want to say.
Okay. Yeah, and other times they're strictly private parties. Yeah, cornfield here and cornfield there.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. A lot of schools, like on the west side of Cincinnati, will host events there. It's got a wooden coaster. Their 2 wooden coasters are called Teddy Bear and Tornado. They're both fun little rides that make you feel like you're at a good, turn of the century even theme park. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So there you go. There was all 8.
Well, since
I mean,
I can't believe I got the locations. I
I
would have
mean,
been stumped on Cedar Point because I would have assumed with all the roller coasters they have, they'd have more than one.
yeah. So, Cedar Creek Mine Ride, Gemini, and Steel Vengeance kind of feel like wooden roller coasters because they all have wooden structure, but only real wooden coaster at Cedar Point is Blue Streak.
That's amazing. I again thought there would have been more. Since we're talking about roller coasters and steel coasters, um, what was the first steel coaster operated in the United States and what year?
The first steel coaster operating in the United States was the 1955 opening of Matterhorn at Disneyland in California.
Oh, you missed the date, but you got the right coaster.
Okay, so Disneyland opened in 1955. I guess that means Matterhorn was not an opening day attraction. So let's say 1964.
Lower,
Okay. It's still in the 50s?
still in the 50s,
Really? So
barely. There's your
59.
correct.
Okay, 1959. All right, off by 4 years. I felt significantly more confident about that one, but that shows what I know.
Yeah, and if anyone really wants to look at this, and if that date's wrong, and I don't believe it is, but if it is, don't fact check me on that. Despite my hair color, I was not alive in 1959. So yeah, I'm just beholden to what the fact set says on the internet. So I
All right,
appreciate no
that's
fact
good. Well,
checking.
that was fun. We'll have to try to keep this going and see. Maybe we'll keep a series long score tally and see who can stump the other more.
Well, but we got the right ones. We just missed some details on. So we'll probably have to get some going forward. Definite hard breaks as to okay, that is incorrect, or that give you partial credit for that one.
Okay, I agree.
But this is a
I gotta
test.
formalize it to make it a competition. Yeah, absolutely, and a good one at that. Well, this was a great week to talk about roller coasters as any week is. Is there anything else we want to talk about this week before we close out for the Attractions Group podcast February 19th?
If anyone would want to submit questions who's familiar with Dennis Spiegel and they want us to bring something up, we're not going to be live. And maybe some point in the future we'll do live shows, but we're not going to be doing anything like that yet. But if there's a question that you've been itching to ask Dennis Spiegel, either from a park standpoint or a professional standpoint, submit those in the comments section. We'll do our best to get them out there.
Absolutely. That's a great point. And if there's anything aside from Dennis Spiegel that you would like to see us do here on the Attractions Group podcast, please let us know. And we
Absolutely.
want to make it the best show it can be for the listeners. So thank you guys so much for tuning into the Attractions Group this week. Make sure to
Yes.
give us a subscription on YouTube and make sure you don't miss any of the exciting things that we have coming to you. David, let's make it a great week.
You too. Appreciate it.
Signing off. See you next
See
week.
ya.